Dr. Reena here. I'm a global dental specialist and founder of RW Perio, located at 75 Harley Street. Welcome to Season 3 of my podcast, Life and Smile, where we talk about everything dental, lifestyle, business, and much more. Every episode, I'm joining conversation with a specialist expert in their chosen field, who gives us a behind-the-scenes glimpse into their daily regime, career turning points, and an insider look at what they can't live without. As a businesswoman myself, it's so inspiring to hear how people have built their careers and shattered those glass ceilings. This third season is sponsored by Colgate. Committed to sustainability, they're obviously a household name, and as a dental expert, they are my personal fail-safe go-to to ensure my smile is always looking and feeling its healthiest. So, let's get the conversation going. Building and growing your own business is something I experience firsthand on a daily basis. It's constantly evolving. You must be prepared for the challenges and moments of success, but most of all, be fully committed to enable it to work and flourish long term. Through this podcast, Life and Smile, the conversation has bloomed as I've had the opportunity to be joined in talks with the most successful leaders across many and often contrasting industries. On this episode, I particularly wanted to focus further on the entrepreneurial vision by exploring just what it takes to launch your own venture and, most importantly, how to make it a global success and household name. Today, I am hugely excited to have with me a guest whose career and brand I've personally followed for many years. She famously started her career working closely with Tom Ford, initially during his tenure at Gucci before becoming Senior Vice President of Communications for his own iconic company, until she took the leap and launched FLOWERBX in 2015. It is, of course, Whitney Bromberg-Hawkings. Welcome to the podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So excited to have you on the show. So Whitney, as FLOWERBX founder and CEO, you are a renowned figure of authority and inspiration across the luxury industry, with Vogue describing you as fashion's chicest florist. Take us fully back to the beginning in your own words. Sort of, how did it all begin?
I mean, that is so kind. I will take that any day. So I started my career working for Tom Ford and worked for him for almost 2 decades. And I started as his PA straight out of school and ended up as his Senior Vice President of Communications at Tom Ford. And realized then, so I loved my job. I had the greatest job in the world, honestly. Like headhunters would come and chat to me about other positions, but I knew if I were going to work in fashion, there was no better job and there was no better person to work for than Tom. So I didn't necessarily want to leave my job. But then I got to a point, Tom would always say, it's so important to have a 10-year plan. You always have to have a 10-year plan. And in my 20s, my 10-year plan was to work, and sort of climb that career ladder. Then in my 30s, I wanted to have a family and obviously keep growing my career. And then I was getting to the point where I was turning 40. I was pregnant with my 3rd child, and I just sort of said, am I going to be 50, and getting Tom a Diet Coke when he's thirsty and worrying about, a very real possibility that for the rest of my life I would be working for Tom, and that would have been a perfectly great outcome. But then there was also this moment where, wow, am I going to be turning 50 and doing exactly the same thing? And I think for women, pregnancy either, sometimes it makes you decide you want to stay put, and then sometimes it's like an impetus and catalyst to just completely change everything. And for me, it was that. So I had this idea of FLOWERBX in the back of my head for a few years. I realized as a working mom, I was buying everything in my life online. I was buying my clothes online. I was buying my beauty online. I was buying my farm fresh organic groceries online. But if I was having friends over for a dinner party, I didn't want to buy a bouquet. I wanted to, a mixed bouquet. I wanted 10 hydrangea on the living room, console, or I wanted 20 peonies in the bathroom, and that was it. So I found myself going to the flower market because I just wanted fresh, single-stemmed, wrapped flowers, at good value, too. And I was like, this makes no sense. I was in a pencil skirt and stilettos. I was, going there at 8 o'clock in the morning after I dropped my kids off at nursery, before I was with, Tom in the office with a car full of flowers. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. How come I can't just buy single stem, beautiful bunches of fresh flowers online? So this idea sort of started percolating. And then I started it as sort of a side hustle. So I thought, I'll see if it works. I can keep my amazing job and keep my amazing salary and keep my, all the perks that came with working with Tom. But it became very clear quite quickly that it had legs, that people were responding to it. And in order to really turn it into something, I needed to take the plunge, leave my career, and really make it happen and give it everything. So the baby was like the impetus to do that.
That's so interesting. Such an inspirational start. And also, I mean, when you said essentially you made that leap to starting your own business, and I remember when I first set up, it's quite scary. And initially, like I remember when I first started the clinic, I didn't have enough patience to even fill one day. And I was in my flat kind of trying to work on things. And sometimes you're like, gosh, is this ever going to work? How did you feel like initially when you first set up? And were there moments where you're like, okay, I'm not sure if this is the right decision?
There are still moments like that. No, there were definitely, it was the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my entire life, because I think so much of my identity at that point, it was my only job, and I moved to Europe and I started working for Tom. So it was always, oh, this is Whitney, she works for Tom. Oh, this is Whitney, she works for Gucci. Oh, this is Whitney. And there was never a Whitney that didn't, that was so much a part of my adult identity. So I think besides the obvious fact of leaving my great career, I was also leaving like a big part of my identity, and I didn't know at that point, were my friends really my friends? Were my friends because I could get them a seat at the Tom Ford show? You know what I mean? So there was also this, and also my husband, we met at work, we met at Gucci, he's still with Tom, we had been together there for 20 years, so I was like, is my marriage good? So much of our relationship was based on working together and being together all the time, so there was also a fear like, what if that all falls apart? But luckily, that's just gotten stronger, as has everything else. But it was absolutely terrifying.
And how did you sort of forge that kind of, as you started creating, I guess, the new identity and the business, how did you start to navigate the initial kind of few years? Is it something that you kind of learned as you went along, or how did you kind of navigate that?
Oh, I'm still learning literally every single day. But luckily, I think I was very reassured very quickly that, I mean, people always say fashion people are fickle and fashion people are fair weather friends. That's just not true. I mean, the people that I had actually invested real time and built real relationships with, they had my back in such a big way and were so supportive. I remember Fiona Goldfarb, who was at Vogue, was like, I'm writing a big piece on you. Literally it was like day one.
Wow.
And that overnight, it was a huge article on From Fashion to Flowers, and overnight just completely changed the business. And I've had so many friends along the way who have, made these, enormous gestures and really helped the business along. So I've been super lucky that, to have these supportive friends. And I think people are always asking, don't you wish you had done it sooner? And it's like, no, because I think building those relationships and, getting the confidence that I did over 20 years really gave me the tools that I needed to finally make the plunge.
For sure. So every
take
step,
the plunge,
make
the plunge,
yeah.
Take the leap. I don't know.
Take the leap, yeah. So everyone in fashion is known to communicate through flowers, and FLOWERBX has solved the search of luxury, single variety blooms at an accessible price point, delivering a shopping experience that's simple, reliable, and premium. And you have clients including tier one brands such as Dior, Louis Vuitton, Farfetch, for example. How do you ensure you successfully represent each unique personal brand aesthetic through single stem varieties? And are there any kind of standout or favorite collaboration moments that you've had so far?
Yes. So I think with all of the brands that you've said, all of us care about quality and we care about consistency. So I think having the best quality flowers is key. And no matter what the flower is, whether it's a Gerbera daisy or a periwinkle delphinium, if you have the best quality, I feel like you can't go wrong.
Right.
And most of these brands, I know from working very closely with a brand, they have brand color guidelines. They have, they have very clear identities, and they have very clearly expressed themselves with flowers. Dior, for example, is always pale pink roses. Right. So it's like you can't go wrong with that. And they understood very early on, the way we understood very early on, that sort of less is more, and quality is everything.
Yeah. And even, going back to that as well with the quality, when you first started the business, did you have that as a key thing from the beginning? Because it's so tempting initially when you're starting off business to possibly want to cut corners and so on. Or did you from the beginning think, okay, I'm going to do this 100% from the beginning in terms of quality? And did that really help grow the business as well?
100%. That's always been so important to me is quality and consistency. And there were so many of our early shareholders who were like, maybe you should be more mass. Maybe you should go, deliver less premium flowers at a more accessible price. And I'm so happy I stuck to my guns, because I'm like, first of all, I'd be chasing what all of those other brands are doing, all those letterbox flowers and Freddie's flowers and all of that. There are enough people competing in that space and enough people doing that. I wanted to really be the only premium sort of online flower delivery company, which I'm so happy we stuck to our guns. And also, as we enter an economic recession and really difficult times, that premium positioning and the fact that people still care about quality has been really helpful, and I'm very happy.
Sure. I mean, in a recession, I guess it's even more important. And I find that the premium brands often in a recession increase their fees. So, but yeah, quality always stands out. I think for me as well, when we first set up the clinic, it's so tempting to say, oh, maybe we'll cut that out. But I've always been the same, like, even if you haven't got a massive business to begin with, if you stick with quality, people see that. And it's all word of mouth as well. And it speaks for itself. So yeah, I could completely agree. So becoming your own boss also meant that you suddenly had to forge your own fashion identity. And after working for years in surely the most glamorous job in the industry where cocktail wear was a daily standard, how did you manage this transition? And any advice for others perhaps in a similar position looking to create their own style that needs to incorporate both practicality and personal taste? And I mean, I know you mentioned initially with the flower box, you're in your stilettos going to the flower market, but then how did you initially sort of transition that identity to what it is today?
That's such a good question. I'm definitely more comfortable because I'm in a warehouse half the day. So like stilettos are not really practical warehouse attire. That said, half of my job is still meeting, heads of brands or meeting CEOs of big fashion companies. So I think, how am I going to tell them, like, we are authorities on beauty and good taste if I don't look like I have good taste and I care about beauty, from the way I'm dressed to. So I definitely have not sort of let comfort take over at all, and I think it's really important to represent the brand, to represent what we're doing, and, to represent FLOWERBX in. So I haven't changed the way I dress. I'm definitely more comfortable, but I also need to be warm.
Yeah.
I'm not in a fancy office in Mayfair. I'm in a warehouse where it's cold and there are flowers.
Yeah. So it's quite, your days must be quite transit. So if you've got meetings in the afternoon, you're working in the warehouse, you have to be ready for kind of all circumstances,
exactly.
I guess.
And dealing with investors and looking like, someone that you want to put your money into. True. So it's a bit of a juggle, yeah, but I think I'm still I'm quite tailored classic person and always have been anyway. So, a blazer and a great pair of jeans and some, cute
Keep it
loafers.
Simple quality. Yeah.
Exactly.
Makes sense. The retail and commercial industries have developed dramatically over the past decade, largely with the onset of digitalization and consumerism demand for that instant sort of access. Do you feel the online method of shopping really helped pave the way for FLOWERBX? How did that, because it's during that time where everything started booming in terms of online, how did that kind of pave the path for FLOWERBX?
That's such a good question. Flowers were the one thing, as I mentioned earlier, that I couldn't buy online. And as a working mom, I was buying, my whole life was online because when I got home, I didn't want to go shopping. I wanted to spend time with my kids. Yeah. So I think that need was really accelerated with COVID, as we know, because you couldn't go into shops. So that sort of, I think, really sped up people's online purchase habits. And luckily, we were already very equipped because we were an e-com, digitally native business, like D2C. That was the core of what we did. So unlike a lot of flower companies that had to sort of pivot and how do we go online, we were online already, and that was how we were born. So luckily, we were able to really sort of ride that wave in an amazing, smooth way. It was crazy busy, but it was, now I'm like, well, those days were actually quite great. Not for many reasons and for many sad situations, but for e-com, it was really strong.
I think it highlighted just how important digital is and how easy it can make everything. And how, now, if we didn't have it, our life would be we wouldn't be able to function, basically. So, yeah. And in terms of sort of any advice that you would give others, if you now look back from when you were with Tom through FLOWERBX, and you mentioned, you mentioned you actually wouldn't do anything differently. You would want those 20 years of experience and the skill set to then be able to launch your brand. But would you do anything differently, or would there be any advice you'd give to your younger self if you're looking back now?
I mean, there are so many things I would do differently, even since I've launched FLOWERBX. But then, when you actually think about it and pick it apart, all of those things are learning curves. I've made a million mistakes, but I feel like all of them were sort of necessary mistakes to confirm certain truths that are now principles of FLOWERBX. So I've made a million mistakes, and I'm sure I will continue to make a million mistakes, but I feel like they were all a necessary part of the journey. And what I would tell my younger self is probably like, you can do this, because I was so full of self-doubt. I'm still am every day. You're like, can I really do this? Can I pull this off? And then like the more you flex that muscle and the more you do it, you realize, oh wow, I did that. That terrified me. I got through it. And so I think I would tell myself that I was better than I thought I was.
Yeah. No, that's really good advice. And I think that the analogy of flexing that muscle, getting stronger, you've got to go through that to get the strength. And sometimes I find, it's often that final rep as such, which will then get you through to the next stage, which you need to do. And yeah, I mean, often, I guess entrepreneurs often earlier on in their career, when you have a failure, you think, oh God, it's all over. But it's, as you said, it's probably just a time point in which you have to get through to progress to the next step, I guess. So having the right mindset. And I guess you mentioned your time with Tom and then building your team. What kind of inspires you? Is it the people around you? Is it your network and relationships that you've built over time? Is it your family? What keeps you going every day?
Well, I'm so like motivated by the fact that I know I'm solving a problem, and I know that this will make people's lives better. And I do know it is the best, most sustainable, chicest, most beautiful, freshest way to consume flowers. And there's no reason the models exist as they currently exist. So that disruptive sort of goal that we have is not complete. So I'm very driven by that. I'm also very like target driven and driven by money, and not money as in personal financial success, but I'm driven by growth. And delivering on certain targets, which sometimes happen, sometimes don't, but that really does motivate me. And sort of, what else can I do? What else can I do? And I'm luckily surrounded by an incredible team. Yesterday we had a senior leadership team meeting, and I was just like, wow, I'm so lucky that I'm surrounded by these super smart, much better at their sort of departments and their respective fields than I am. And that really motivates me too, to sort of be better for them. So I'm luckily don't suffer from any motivational issues. I just like suffer from impatience, and I'm like, why isn't this happening faster?
Patience, I guess, is the hardest thing, isn't it? I guess. So it's the team around you, the fact that you're solving a real useful problem, and it's working and it's making people's lives better.
Exactly.
What about, because I know you've traveled the world. Are there any particular cities that inspire you, or any works of fiction, for example? Any things you read that help you on a daily basis or listen to?
Yeah, I mean, I love listening to podcasts. How I Built This is always really great, because you hear what's really I think really helpful as a founder, because we all know being a founder can be like a very lonely place to be, especially when things aren't going well. I think hearing other founders that have had challenges, that have overcome challenges, even founders like Sarah Blakely from Spanx, or people that are like, you're like, they've always just had it made, like the setbacks that they've gone through, I think is always really encouraging, especially when you're not having the best time. I love reading books, sort of just reading now No Rules, the Netflix book. And again, I think it's just really motivating that none of that happened overnight, and none of it happened without challenge. And then as far as travel just in general, I think leaving your situation and having a minute to have new ideas, because I think we all get so bogged down in the day-to-day and team and family that you're not creative, because you're so busy just getting stuff done. So I think just travel in general.
Taking a step back and just seeing it from a different view.
Exactly.
For sure. So bringing the topics around your day-to-day routine, where you effortlessly balance your career, your family, describe a sort of typical day in the life of Whitney.
I mean, effortless. I wish.
You definitely make it look effortless.
No, I mean, I've got an amazing husband, like the best husband, which I think is key. Not that everyone has a husband, but having a support network. So whether it's a mom, a sister, a nanny, a husband, as someone that helps you share the load of all of it, because it's impossible to do it by yourself. And I think, women sometimes try to do it all by themselves, and that's just, it's crazy and it's impossible. So I think having a great team both at home and at work, and team meaning whatever network you have around you, is vital. For me, also exercise, like every single day, mainly because it's not even for the physical aspect of it. It's just mentally. Like I feel 85% better of a day if I started exercising than I do if I don't. Just my whole mindset, like positivity, etc.
So that's, you do that in the morning, first thing. Okay. Any particular exercises that
anything. Honestly, even if it's just a 45-minute walk in the park.
Right. So just move, basically. Right. Nice. And in terms of like your day-to-day routine, is it different every day? Like, do you go to the warehouse some days, meetings some days? How do you plan your kind of week as such?
It's very different, and especially post-COVID. I mean, before COVID, I went to the warehouse every day until, noonish, and then would have meetings in town in the afternoon, and that's sort of how I divided my day. And the warehouse is always an early start, because flowers are like a very early start. They arrive in our warehouse from Holland at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'm not there at 4 o'clock in the morning, luckily, anymore, ever. But, and I have an amazing team that sort of, processes the orders, quality checks them, reconditions them, gets them out by 7 for delivery. But it's also because it's an early morning endeavor, flowers. There's like any sort of fires that need to be put out always happen like 3, 7 a.m., which is like really stressful. Luckily now, though, the team is like, it only gets escalated to me if it's something that needs to be escalated to me, but they're amazing at putting out fires. So that was before. Now it's really organic, because if I have a day of Zooms, there's no point in me being at the warehouse. I'll work from home. And then come into town as necessary for meetings. Also during COVID, a lot of our office space, because we had such high demand, sort of turned into warehouse space because we needed it. So now our sort of office space is shrinking and shrinking. So I don't know. I think probably next year is a time to speak with the team and understand who wants to be full-time in an office, who doesn't. I think when you hire really highly motivated, really exceptional people, they could be working from the moon. They're going to get their job done. So I'm not at all precious about, I want to see them because I like them and I'm inspired by them. But as far as, forcing grown-ups to go into an office, I think they all know what they need to do.
Nice. It's a very flexible kind of approach, which I guess gets the best out of people, I guess.
If you hire the right people.
If you hire the
right people. It doesn't get the best out of people if you hire the wrong people, which I've also seen too.
Right. Okay. Good point. So going back to sort of COVID, but also things like sustainability, I think that's really been a word that's been used so often for the whole 360 lifestyle industry, and in fact now most industries, including dental. Have you personally embraced it? Are there any other changes that you've seen come through in the industry, or focus shifts from your clients' interests? Have you kind of incorporated that?
Again, I feel like a lot of brands and companies now are like, oh, and we're trying to be sustainable. From the get-go, that was important to me, way before it was like a buzzword on everyone's lips. I mean, I remember we had our first van was an electric van, and it was so expensive, and it was impossible to find chargers. And everyone's like, that's not the most cost-efficient thing to do. It was important to me, so we did that. As far as no plastic in our packaging, we've never had plastic in our packaging, which with flowers, I'm telling you, is extremely challenging because they're wet. You know what I mean? And they need a water source. So there's a reason most florists use that awful cellophane environmental hazard of a bubble, which we don't use, and we didn't from the beginning. Also, our whole business model is zero waste. So again, which is super challenging. Having a just-in-time delivery model with flowers, I'm telling you, is not an easy thing to do. So basically, you order the flowers today. They're cut on your behalf in Holland. They come over and they're sent to you tomorrow. So literally, we have a zero waste business model. Everything's cut to order, which means you get fresher flowers, you get better value, and it's kinder to the environment, because floristry historically wastes 60%. It's like food waste of the flowers, because they die. They're dying the second you hold on to them. We aren't holding on to anything, so nothing's dying. So again, that's a business model. It's nascent in what we do. So it's not like an afterthought. Oh, how are we going to make this sustainable? It is sustainable. We composted all our green waste from the beginning, which again was so expensive. When you're looking at margin, you're paying for someone to come and pick up green waste every single day. It's, it eats away at it. But I'm so happy we've sort of set all the best practice out. So it's not like, how are we going to do this now that we're a bigger company? We've always done it. We've just applied for our B Corp too, which was a year long getting that application in. So it's in now. So hopefully any day now we'll receive that. And I think that will really, gives such a boost to the team because all of the hard work that we put into it. And also now when you're hiring younger people, that's super important. Like as sort of a cultural pillar of the company, that we care about that, and that's front of mind.
Yeah, because it's almost kind of normal to be sustainable now. So that's incredible that you've managed to overcome those challenges and make it work. So in terms of, obviously we're in very contrasting industries, but there are links with sort of business, entrepreneur, that side of things. And I know how intense it can be. As you said, it's a constant, it's a full-time job. You don't really switch off, I guess, even when you're at home. But how do you sort of, in terms of making it work for the long term, are there any sort of tips and tricks that you think, and you mentioned some already in terms of quality, ensuring we're sustainable, having the right team around you? Are there any other things that, my business is relatively new, it's 5 years, that would make it, what have you seen that has been key in keeping it sustainable for the long term, essentially?
Honestly, the one thing I would say, and I say this to the team every single day, is agility right now, because the world has never changed, I think, so rapidly overnight. We've lived through, it's crazy. I mean, it's such a dumb word to say, unprecedented times, but like what we are going through right now has never happened. Not to the scale. We're in the biggest economic crisis ever. COVID was like the worst pandemic in 100 years. We're living in sort of really extraordinary times. So I think being agile and responding, not like this is how we do things. We had 50% of our business pre-COVID was B2B, so events, hotels, restaurants, all of that. Overnight, 50% of our business disappeared. So we could have either sat there and been like, oh, well, now we have 50% of the business. Or what we did was lean into the B2C business, really like turn that on in a huge way, like put the pedal to the metal and really grew that. And now the inverse is completely true. D2C is softening across the board, every single brand, every single sector. So luckily now I'm like, okay, team, now we're going to do a 180 and we're going to lean into hospitality, that's thriving, lean into luxury, that's thriving, and lean into the whole B2B business, which is where the opportunity is now. So I think being really responsive, you can't be like, here's my business plan. Yeah. I mean, you almost need to reevaluate your business plan every single day at this point. Wow, okay. I mean, not literally the entire plan every day, but every day I think you need to second guess what you're doing. And I think that's the only way that we will successfully ride like these really uncertain times, and especially the next 3 or 4 years.
Being able to adapt. Really good advice. And what about because I always find when I go home, it's really difficult to fully switch off. And first thing in the morning, I really try not to check my phone, but it's always like, oh God, is there a message on Teams from my team that I need to check? And I'm sure sometimes you were the same at the beginning. But have you got any advice for young entrepreneurs? Do you switch off, or do you think it's important to, or do you think it's just a lifestyle approach where you're just making everything, it's one whole big thing that you're running essentially?
I wish I switched off. I don't. But I also love what I'm doing, so it doesn't feel like a compromise. It's not I'm excited if I I do try to leave my team alone on the weekend because I think it's important for them to have some space and some time with their families or whatever. But no, I don't ever switch off because I'm so excited and back to just so motivated and passionate about what I'm doing. But I'm super lucky. I mean, having kids, I think, forces you to switch off a little bit, which is great because, if I'm doing bath time and bedtime with my 6-year-old, I'm not on my phone, and I'm not on my phone at the table with the kids. And there are certain boundaries that I think are non-negotiable. Yes. Another is, we're super lucky. We have a place in Wiltshire, like a weekend house. And so that to me is like a non-negotiable. And I think, so whatever the parameters you set and say that is time, we will do that no matter what. So I think that prevents social life. It just carves out some time that no matter what is going to be time with your family. So I think create those non-negotiables and then don't go back on them, whether it's don't go out more than 2 nights a week, or where you push yourself too far. And I think you need to draw lines and then you need to stick to them, put them in your calendar. You are not allowed to do that, and don't bend the rules for anything. And that's the way you sort of create boundaries. And I'm pretty disciplined about that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're almost making it impractical and impossible to do those things where it's for example, when you're on a plane, you can't really if you're on airplane mode, you can't really text anyone. So I guess you're creating that environment where you are fully focused on the family. So you're kind of forcing yourself to switch off essentially.
Yeah, it's making rules, really.
Yeah. So we always ask our guests in terms of 3 things, that you can't live without, or 3 things that you'd have on your desk or in the warehouse when you're working, or perhaps even in your handbag. What is your kind of mini survival kit that you need all the time?
Gosh, 3 things. I mean, really just my phone, phone charger, and my laptop are like really my 3.
So everything digital needs to be connected.
Just being connected.
Yeah, for sure. So, Whitney, thank you so much. I mean, what an inspirational conversation. So many nuggets of wisdom to take away, and I'm sure the listeners will be super inspired by everything. If we want to keep in touch and see kind of what's going on and any kind of latest projects, where would be the best place? Of course, everyone's linked to the FLOWERBX website. But to tell us more, where can we stay in tune with everything you're doing?
Yeah, so our Instagram at the FLOWERBX, and then the website, and we have a lot of really exciting things. Especially with holiday coming up.
Yes,
a lot of very amazing sort of installations and facades, and a lot of hotels, and a lot of sort of visual representation of our work, which is nice as an online company to have something external that represents what we believe in and our sort of aesthetic and all of that. So.
Yeah, love it. And I know you've got the editorial part of the website, the cut as well, which is great for everyone to link to, and lots of interesting projects on there as well. So thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you again at Harley Street really soon anyway. But honestly, I know you're super busy, so thank you so much for your time and sharing your journey with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I want to interview you next. Thank you. That was so much fun.
Thank you.